expect to talk about your own challenges, you're in the right place, and we're happy that you chose to join us today. I want to remind you before we get started, and I'll do it several times today, our email address. If you have something that you would like to talk about, if you have a comment about the show, or you've got a business challenge and you're looking for a little bit of input, send me your emails. I love to get these. In fact, if you're a regular listener, you know from time to time we come on and present a segment, present one of these questions, and provide answers over the air. So please send us your emails. Stay in touch with us. That's at onebestconsult.com. Onebestconsult, at gmail.com. And it's the number one, bestconsult@gmail.com. Please send those emails. Well, I think we've lined up a wonderful show for you today, and trying to stay with our mission to provide our listeners with a place to have conversations with other business people, a place to get information, to get education, to help you build a better, stronger, more successful business. And again, a place where if you've got a question about your business, you can send it in to me and we talk about it. So it's the Weekly Business Hour. Also, we have a wonderful guest this week that I am really excited about because it's a little different twist than what we normally do. We've got an international guest, or he has an international background, Mr. Michel Prive. Michel is from France. He and his wife moved to Canada, and then some time ago down to the United States, relocated. They live in the Houston area. He's a businessman. He's owned his own businesses. He's a Silver Fox advisor as well, and he's an expert in sales leadership. And he's going to walk us through the steps of how to build, train, and maintain a world-class sales team, even if you're just a small local business. If you have salespeople thinking about adding salespeople, or if you wear, as a business owner, the sales hat, I think you're going to enjoy and find some really good information in our conversation with Michel. So please, we're going to start that right off the bat because the conversation went a little long, but it was so full of information that we just kept talking, and I think you'll enjoy it again. So please, listen to our conversation this past week with Michel Prive regarding sales, sales leadership, sales management, and how you too can build a world-class sales organization. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as I promised, today we're going to have a very special guest, an expert in the field of sales, sales training, who has an international background and experience, which will be a brand new thing for us here on the Weekly Business Hour. And I'm so pleased to introduce to you Mr. Michel Prive. Michel, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you for inviting me to your show and allowing me to share my passion for sales with you and your listeners.
Well, when I look at your bio, and you and I talked a little bit off air, I mean, you've had some wonderful experiences, worked for large companies. You also worked for startup companies and built your own business. You've had collectively a tremendous amount, a very broad experience in the world of business. So in my mind, that even makes you a more valuable guest because you've been there and done it. If you would share a little bit of your background as it relates to sales, sales training.
For sure. Maybe I could start by saying that I'm an engineer. I'm a mechanical engineer, and that makes, my trajectory in my career quite strange because very, very, very shortly in my career, it turns out to be in front of customers, and it turns out that selling to customers through proposing solutions that they were looking for was without knowing, in fact, the key point of selling is to have to listen carefully to what customers are looking for and be able to provide that to them. And I learned that very early in my career, and over the time in large companies, small companies, my own business, sales has been very much a natural aspects of my approach with clients. And it turns out that over the time, building small or very large sales team, including channels and training training sellers at distributors, the methodology was very much similar. It was all about understanding what the clients, the buyers are looking for, and that makes me, I think that by training, it makes me a much stronger seller.
Well, there's no doubt about it. And one of the things, we don't forget to tell folks, and I'm sure by listening to you and your accent, they may have guessed you were born and raised in France, correct?
That is correct. I've been born and served my country as well in France, and I've been married to a wonderful French woman for 30 years. Next month, our anniversary, we have two sons, Victor and Leonard, we are very proud of.
Well, let me ask you just real quickly, what brought you to the Houston area?
What brought me in Houston, in fact, after selling my engineering company out in Canada, I stayed on board, and a well-known company called Teledyne contacted me and asked me to merge several companies they acquired internationally to build up a group of company. And the merge was not so much on the operation side or on the financial side, it was on the sales side. And so that was a ticket for us living in Canada in the cold for my wife and I was a blessing, because we had the opportunity to choose where we wanted to go. And we selected to come to Houston, who welcomed us very warmly. So thank you very much, Houstonians, for welcoming us in your community. And so I stayed at Teledyne for about 6 years to have them become very, very profitable and diversify the business that I was in charge for. And I promoted a fantastic individuals to the leadership position, mentoring them to be there, to allow me to fire myself and to allow me to create my own firm now, consulting firm, helping companies in sales. That's the reason why I'm here in Houston, Texas, and I'm staying in Houston, Texas.
Well, we welcome you, and I'm glad you decided to come here. It's the business aspect of it. Sales, if we'll jump right in the middle of it, I mean, it's just amazing to me, all the different things going on since COVID and so on and so forth. And one of the things that has been really impacted, that maybe their business owners, yes, their revenue, their sales dropped off, but they don't realize the severity of the impact. And you've got some information about that, and you've got a wonderful slide that reflects that. If you don't mind sharing with us your state of the sales industry here in the United States.
Yes, sir. So, okay, I'm sharing that here. Can you see my screen?
There it is.
All right. So, let me go over, let me present this. Yes, there you go. Yes, so I'm part of a member of Sales Acceleration, and Sales Acceleration every year we are collecting data from our assessment. That's the first step we do when we help companies. And over the last 3 years, we are measuring different parameters coming from these assessments, parameters being how strong the companies are in sales structure, processes, how they are using their CRMs, going after the right client, and so on and so forth. And we have done that for enough time to be able to gauge how strong the small and medium-sized businesses are. And we published last month, in fact, the latest results. And what we've seen, there are a few things that are coming out of this survey, is that more and more, less and less, in fact, business owners are training their sales reps. And most of them believe that the training provided is not efficient. And that triggers, in fact, very much, the topic of the discussion today. And overall, what we've seen is that with COVID or during the COVID crisis, the sales profession on its own has changed dramatically. 2020 was a year where it was not possible to meet clients anymore, buyers and sellers, and that dislocking very much or change the relationship and the approach of selling, the way to communicate with the clients, to reach out to the clients. Even internally, the clients themselves had to work remotely. And when a new project was coming up with needs to outsource certain of the product services that were purchased on the outside, the skills that was already embedded into the sellers suddenly had some difficulties to apply. And what we've seen as well, we've seen because of the fact that we had all to be remote, there was a trend of switching the selling into the marketing, and there's a big confusion that started. And what the consequences of this situation I've seen, the statistics are horrifying. They've seen that 63% of the salespeople were considering switching jobs. And that, or switching not jobs, but also disciplines. And without sales, there's no revenue. And for the business-to-business owners, understanding the difference of what marketing brings to sales, what it brings, the consequences of not having qualified sellers could be a disaster.
Well, when you shared this information with me and I was looking at what really struck me as a previous owner of small businesses and several of the businesses, we had our own sales team. Others we worked through distributors primarily, but is the fact that 92% of the owners report, small business owners, they don't train their sales reps. They just hire somebody. And I would think in smaller businesses, the owner is the sales manager, wearing many hats and running the business. It's just amazing to me that you would have an employee in any responsibility and not train them, or to make them better in the job that you have hired them to do for you.
Absolutely. Most of the time, in fact, the training, when training is ready, it's the in-house training. And what we're saying as well is that the in-house training was the training that was existing before COVID. It was before the buyers changed, the process changed, the technology changed, and the training has not been updated. And because the training on its own, the training without mentoring to validate that the training on its own is embedded, is implemented, the outcome of the training is measurable, the return on investment is real. Without that part, the training could be, a noise in the background and not bringing any value for the business owners. And what we've seen, there's a second phenomena which is not a good one for anyone, is we've seen, in fact, you heard about the big resigning. You have, close to 60 million people change jobs in 2021. Most of them, 70% of them, in fact, were voluntarily leaving. And for the sales organization, for the sales reps, one of the reasons why they are changing job, or they were changing job, were the ability to raise their salary every time that they were changing job. And by the way, that was significant. This is significant. If a salesperson could take 10% every time that they are changing job, good for them on the short period of time. But for the organization, that becomes terrible. And that become a cancer, as a matter of fact, because the level of the culture and the atmosphere within the sales team is very much a happy sales team is a sales team who sells a lot, and a positive sales team sells much more than a negative sales team. And we have to do everything we can as sales leader or business leaders to make sure your sales team is in a very good spirit. And that's, training is one of the solutions, but other solutions are in the toolbox. Today, we're going to be talking about the training solution.
Well, some of the other points that you just put up in this slide about the fact that buyers and sellers have changed, just touch on that for a moment, if you would, because I find that an interesting concept that I think a lot of people would claim they understand, but maybe they really don't, because obviously it has a huge impact on the entire transaction that you're seeking to consummate and then continue with the repetitive buyer. If you would, just touch on that for a moment.
I will use a couple of examples to validate that point. Is that when 15 years ago I was in Canada, I was visiting my client Bombardier Space. In the same trip, I was able to talk to 3 buyers, seeing multiple engineers, go in the workshop and fix some of the technical issues that they had with my product. And I was able to do that in an afternoon. With COVID, that's not possible anymore. So therefore, you have to find another way to reach out to your customers. And that's one example, is the communications and the ability to do a lot of things while you're there. I saw one of my clients, I witnessed a transaction of close to $40,000, which was done by a young man less than 30 years old, selling to another young man less than 30 years old. It was a trailer, a food trailer. I witnessed them doing this with WhatsApp only. It was WhatsApp talk, WhatsApp email exchange, DocuSign, done. That's another way to do the business. The gap, not the gap of generation, but the way that the different generations are communicating, we have to adapt to this. We have to be able to sell to a younger buyer and older seller, and the other way around. We have to be able to convince and sell through all the different technologies accessible to us. We have to use artificial intelligence as well, not to sell completely, but to remove a lot of administrative tasks and duties that the sellers have to do, which is consuming their own time, and use that time to sell more. And so that's what I mean, that the buyers and the sellers, and the buyers have also changed dramatically. You never know before you call who you have, what kind of buyer is in front of you, and obviously you have to adapt.
Well, it makes, we know that the pandemic over the last couple of years has made it's had a huge impact on lots of different parts of our society and business and whatnot. And so there's no reason that it would not have had a large impact on our ability to buy and sell from each other. And you make some really salient points. Well, believe it or not, Michael, we're to the point where we need to take a short break. So we're going to take a break, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you'll stay with this. We're going to continue this interview. When we come back, we're going to kind of jump right in the middle of it and start talking about Michael's approach to sales training, which is what we need to do with our salespeople, is to train them. So I hope you'll stay with us. We'll be right back.
Our talk shows and music shows are looking for sponsors. Want to expand your brand awareness? Reach the hyper-local audience in Montgomery County? Lone Star Community Radio sponsorships accomplish this. Want to see our stats and rates? Check out irlonestar.com/sponsor for more information. Or call in and leave us a message at 936-647-3776.
An estimated 1 in 10 births will result in a neonatal intensive care stay, also known as the NICU. Overnight, a family can find themselves and their newborn baby in a critical situation. The Mila Foundation financially and spiritually assists families in need. If you would like to volunteer or become a monthly sponsor, please visit us at www.themilafoundation.org. Again, that's www.themilafoundation.org, because every life matters.
Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you staying with us. We're having I consider a very in-depth and very enlightening conversation about sales and sales training. Our special guest, international sales consultant, Michel Prive. And Michel, when we went to break, we had spent the first segment of the show talking about sales, learning a little bit about your background, but now is the expression, let's get to the meat of the coconut and jump into sales training, which is your expertise and what needs to happen, why people need to do it, et cetera, et cetera. So why is sales training so important?
Well, sales training is important to be able to face the new needs that are coming from buyers. And I would put sales training, because that's where I am, but training in general is a very nice way to retain employees. It's I talked about before the break about people's changing jobs. Training is as the ability to allow your employees to do better their tasks. And in sales, especially when you have new people joining the team, having them to be trained into their new locations, or even the previous employees to train them selling, they feel much better at selling. They feel more comfortable. They feel more efficient. And as I said before, a happy sales team is a team who is selling. A team who is selling thanks to training, it's directly related to higher commission, and higher commission gets a better living time. It helps, especially with the crisis that we are in, with higher commission, with a much stronger way to be able to convince a buyer to buy from you is a tremendous addition to your portfolio to keep the people in your company. You might have noticed under the title, it's why sales training is important while recruiting is difficult, and growth is still required, but turnover is a cancer in sales. What we've seen is that with high turnover in sales, first of all, if you lose a salesperson in your team, they may end up directly working for your competitors, which is not a good sound. It could be a good thing if the salesperson was not a good one, but would you have to replace that person? The ramp-up time will be in a range of 6 months. You might lose as well expert in the field of the product that you are providing, or the solution you're providing to your clients. And therefore, if you are able to keep your employee, especially your sales employee, on board, by training that person, it's a very low cost, a very high return on investment that you should be considering in your arsenal of tools to keep the people.
You know, you made these points before the break, and with your previous slide, and we talked. Obviously, recruiting of any employee, basically any position, generally speaking, has become very challenging, particularly in markets such as where we are in the Houston area, greater Houston area, where business is really booming, generally speaking. And so the ability to hire someone in a position, especially what I consider a very critical position, being sales, to not take the opportunity to train them and develop them further, because like any position, you have people at different levels of ability that, depending on years of experience and other things like that, it just seems like a totally missed opportunity at the very least for an employer, a business owner, to miss the opportunity to train someone if they feel they've got the right person in the job, not to do everything they can to make them better, more successful for all the right reasons. So it's very interesting. And as you mentioned, turnover in sales, which I've seen over my 50-year career, is just amazing. Because good salespeople, what I was brought up on is a good salesman can sell anything, doesn't matter, you know. Igloos to Eskimos, or some expression like that. And the second thing is, they're never out of work more than one day. They can always find a job. They can sell anything, and they can always find a job. So in my opinion, when you find someone you feel is right, making this investment in sales training is so important. We've got another few minutes before we're going to have to take a break, but kind of walk us through this sales training process as you would follow, and what you were doing if you brought it to a business.
Well, I will be looking at first. I generally do an evaluation call, and during that call, I would ask, when was the last time your sales team has been trained, what topics have been trained, and the most important part is that I would like to know your 12, 24, and 36 months business plan. What are you trying to achieve? Are you looking at having more customers? Are you looking at selling more to your current customers? Are you looking at trying to break through a different segment? What are you trying to achieve? And asking about the sales team on his own, do they have the tools to be able to be successful? And according to this, what I've come up with would be tailoring a plan and a recommendation according to the size of the company, according to their needs. And the goal is to have the sales team members and also the sales leader to be trained to match what the company's business owners, the strategy, the plan, and to be sure that it's going to be delivered.
Yeah, that's one thing you touched on. That's part of what I do as well. Is in your case, you're asking for 2 or 3 years of a sales plan, and then building the sales team, their abilities, the right people in the right slots, and all that, so that the company has a better than average chance, the way I look at it, of meeting or exceeding those goals. Because without that information of knowing where your people want to take it, too many times I've seen the conversation with business owners, though, revolve around, well, he or they're real good at sales. They know how to get people, and they go into all this background and stuff at the street level, and your questions about where do you want to go with this? Where do you as a company want to be sales wise? Because that person may not be the right person. The other thing I have found, and I don't know what your experience has been, but salespeople, one, are human beings, and they're creatures of habit, just like all of us. And you can have someone who's really good in sales. They can develop the leads, they can close them, do the paperwork, but they reach a certain level of activity, and they're not going to do much more than that. They're so good. I've had some that were just stumped me. They'd reach a certain level of sales, and nothing you could do, or at least that I figured out, could push them to do more, which they had the time to do. I mean, it was just amazing. One of the things that always kind of bothered me.
Rick, I understand, and I face the same thing. I'm referring to the sales people like teenagers, and behavior. The behavior is in a lot of cases very much like teenagers. And one of the way to get your best salesperson who decide that I'm good, I already sold, etc., to have the compensation plan tailored very much to have the business owner willing that person to do. In other words, you want that person to do not only their quota, exceed their quota, but in addition to that is to have that person, for example, to take training, to be able to have management training, to be able to have something else to keep that person on board. When you have a good seller, once again, you have to keep them in a very good mood to be able to continue to be with you and not being bored. And one way to do this is to send those people to training that will be helping the company to grow. It could, as I said, to become a better manager, or to set them up to become a manager, to share their skills of selling with others. So there are ways. I'm not saying this is the ultimate solution, but the compensation plan with training embedded into that compensation plan is a big factor of keeping and motivating the salesperson.
One of the things, and I noticed you put up the slide for our listeners and those who are watching the show regarding the business owner and what sales training and coaching the sales team can bring them. Let's kind of touch on some of those things, because I think that's, as an owner, we should know most of this, if not all of it, but they're very important salient points you made.
Absolutely. So the first line is more profitable revenue. What I mean in the most important part of that sentence is profitable. Training, the right training, will help your sales team to focus on the most profitable business, the most profitable leads, and or to make the existing business more profitable. Sales has a massive impact on the profitability. And once again, the compensation plan has to be tailored to be sure that it drives that first aspect. Raising the overall sales team performance. If you have 2 or 3 salesperson in your team and they are not competing, ask yourself that maybe you don't have the right people in your team. People love to compete, and having a compensation plan which also include a team performance aspect will be very much a big winner. And would all the members of these sales teams taking the training, we could have fun competition within, based on the training, directly raising the overall performance of the sales team. You would have fewer recruitment activities. What I mean with this is that if you train people, the training for the employees is adding up a lot of loyalty. We are human beings. When we see people investing on us, we have tendency to keep, to stay longer, to feel that you are part of that organization, and you do mean that you want to stay. And that generates cost savings in recruitment. Once you have the right people in your team, they are well trained, they will not move. They won't hop from one job to another, because if the sales training is allowing them to make larger commission, there's no reason for them to change. And if the culture, supporting the culture, with those new sales training or sales training in place, the culture of winning and be good, and into an organization will help. And the last part is energizing the sales team and the company. I've seen that when Teledyne brought me in, there were companies which were sad. It was difficult for them, and seeing new blood coming in, new blood being me, bringing new stuff in, new processes, etc., into the sales teams, started to elevate everybody. And new businesses were coming in, the work was higher quality, people get happier, and we stopped the turnaround in the company, the turnover, of the company overall. So sales training is a big thing for the business owners.
Well, and there's so many advantages to it once you get it, and you make a great point, and I think that's something that everybody needs to consider. Sales employee, you just popped up the information there.
Yes, that's right, because the sales employee itself, what training is bringing to the sales employee is loyalty, and especially in sales, because what I've seen, since I've been doing my consulting job, even working with big companies, massive companies, most of the sales team members were never been trained to sell. And they were not comfortable selling. They were not comfortable picking up the phone. They were more customer service than salespeople, but they were tasked to do sales tasks, and that didn't go well. So obviously, one of the reasons it was not because they were not good people, is that they were not trained to do this. Sales training brings a much higher level of confidence. And I can tell you that you can hear that on the phone when a trained person is talking to you compared to a non-trained salesperson. And the comfort makes the day going much faster. It brings much more commission and happiness, obviously. And for the sales employee, the return on investment is directly turned into a commission, much better commission, higher commission, and down the road, because the employer invested on that sales employee, it's a personal and professional improvement, and which we all aim at to improve, to get access to a much larger piece of knowledge shared, learn from your colleagues how they do this task better, and understanding why this task is important for the closing of the sales. So it has a lot of benefit.
Well, Michel, you have taken us on quite a journey today through selling and sales training, and a lot of distinct advantages that it offers the business. And small business owners hiring that first salesman, some say is the most difficult hire they ever make, is the first salesperson. And I always counsel my clients and say, well, first one may not work out. In fact, there's a pretty high probability, that being true for pretty much any position, because you're getting a feel. But again, as I said early on, people sales people are sometimes very challenging for a business owner and whatnot to hire and to train and develop. And you offer a pretty darn good roadmap here. If people are interested in talking to you and getting more information, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, the best way is you got my contact details here. It's by email, by phone, and by email is the preferred way. And just before we go, Rick, I wanted to finish on that presentation. It's because there was a second statistics that were added up coming up from our survey. It was that the business owners didn't believe that training is worth it. And to address this, I tried to put a budget of what the cost of a status quo is, not training, and the cost of recruiting to replace the salespeople leaving. And it turns out that the cost of training in using a REN group training, online training that we have is not that expensive. This is very much 12 months access to a lot of different aspects of training. And training without a sales coach is a nonsense to me. You need to have people validating that the training is sticking, and with real case, with coaching on how to address those cases. And those coaching could be done with a group of the sales team, the complete sales team. What I've seen is that sales manager never been trained either, and it's difficult for the sales manager to coach their own people. So I strongly encourage, in addition to the sales training, is to also looking at hiring a coach. And the budget, if you look at that, of course you can have different ways to do this. This is not that expensive compared to the status quo. We talked about just before that about the value of training, and the value of not training is the opposite. And so obviously, if you want to hear more or you want to know more about training or sales training, please send me a note and or call me. I will be very happy to talk to you, listen to you. As you said, Rick, is that listening is number one in sales. It's what do you need? What are your pain points? How can I help to match what you are able to do? So,
well, Michel, again, thank you so much. And as a sideline to what you just said regarding comparative, which is a wonderful comparative analysis you presented, is one of the things I've been challenged with is getting my clients, when we discuss their business, building their business, is to understand and accept that there's a real cost that goes into turnover, regardless of the position of hiring, training. There's a lot that goes into that. They know that, but they never quantify what that really cost them. And if they do, if I can get them to do it with me, most of the time they take a big gulp, if you will, and say, whoa, and then they're open to a comparison like you're showing for salespeople. Well, Michel, I can't thank you enough again for taking time to join us. This has been a wonderful, wonderful lesson in sales training, why we need to train salespeople, whether we're large or small. Just, the owner, maybe the sales manager, it just doesn't matter. You need to have good training and be involved. I actually took a sales course with 3 of my salespeople because at that point I was still the sales manager in the business I started, and I took the entire course with them. And like you say, you've got to know where everything is, where the bathroom is and everything if you're going to try to train people and keep them focused. So I can vouch for the concept of sales training and how invaluable it can be. So, well, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our discussion and conversation with Michel Prive. And if you'd like more information, I encourage you to reach out to Michel and talk to him direct, or you can reach out to me at the number one bestconsult@gmail.com, and I'll refer your question directly to Michel.
Well, thank you, Rick, for having me today. It's a big gift. Today is 3 years old of my company. It's a birthday, and you give me a very nice gift of allowing me to be on your show. So thank you very much, Rick.
Happy birthday to you and your firm. And ladies and gentlemen, I hope, again, this has been helpful. And if you want to review it and look at it again, it'll be available in just 2 or 3 days up on the website irlonestar.com, which is the radio station, a community radio station for us, Lone Star Community Radio, and many other social media sites will have it available as well. So thank you.
Lone Star Community Radio is ready for the summer. If you or anyone you know is looking for a summer internship, Lone Star Community Radio is a great place to learn the radio and TV business. Contact the station at info@irlonestar.com or call the station's message line at 936-647-3776. Lone Star Community Radio offers a great opportunity to those interested in learning about the radio world.
Every Friday, tune into Texas Ticket on Conroe's 104.5 and 106.1 FM with Armando Nino of Gold Lake Conroe, focusing on Montgomery County area events and places. Get a feel of the Texas spirit at the event, paired with guest and vendor interviews, event coverage, and ticket giveaways, and so much more. Join us Fridays and punch your Texas Ticket. For more information on the show, visit irlonestar.com/Texas Ticket.
Are you interested in learning more about preparing quick, healthy, and safe meals for your family? Would you like to spend time with others learning tips and tricks, along with practicing and tasting nutritious food? If so, the On the Road to Healthy Living Mobile Cooking School is for you. Call Amy Ressler at Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service at 936-539-7825 to find a class near you or volunteer to host a class.
Listen in Mondays at noon to hear Conroe news from local nonprofits, businesses, upcoming events, Conroe Park events, news stories, and information that matters to you with your host, Margie Taylor of Taylorized PR. For more information about being a guest, visit irlonestar.com/Conroe Culture.
Well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Michel Prive. As promised, I hope you experienced and heard what I heard, a lot of great information about sales, building a sales team, sales management, and Michel has a lot to offer, and if in case your company is looking for some direct advice, I encourage you to reach out and contact him. A couple reminders before we get started with the final segment of our show. First of all, the podcast video cast of today's show will be available to you in a couple days. You can simply go to the station website, irlonestar.com. That's the site for Lone Star Community Radio. Or you can go check out the Weekly Business Hour page on Facebook, YouTube, and many other social media sites. So if you'd like to listen to it, re-listen to perhaps the conversation with Michel, I encourage you to do so. And particularly, if you know someone in business that you think this might help, please share it with them as well. Also, I want to let you know that if you're a local business in the Conroe, Montgomery County area, that you can be the sponsor, be a sponsor of the Weekly Business Hour. It's very easy to do. It's very inexpensive, relatively speaking. Just reach out to me at that's the number 1, bestconsult@gmail.com. That's bestconsult@gmail.com. Well, in the remaining time that we have, I want to address a question, and I've talked about it off and on, directly, indirectly, over the last few months, because we've been promised a recession. You know, it's interesting to live in a world we can't even agree that when there's a recession. We even argue about inflation, whether it's real or not real. A lot of that I personally believe is smoke. Most of it's politically driven. The fact is business is slowing down in many markets. Those of us who live here in Montgomery County may not have directly felt its effects yet, but business is slowing down. Now, at what point technically it becomes a recession, it's your call. I just don't know myself. But there's some things I think are important to revisit if you're a business owner and there is a slowdown, a recession coming. There's several things you can do real easily. First of all, stretch your payments. Everybody should have heard of this by now. Stretch your accounts payable. Stretch your payments out talk to the vendor, see if you can pay in 60 days, 90 days. This makes a difference because you can retain and expand, if you will, your cash flow and have longer use of your funds, because we know what happens when things slow down to a certain point. Most, if not all businesses at some point slow down. Their revenues slow down. Their customers slow down or stop making their purchases. So stretching your payments is a no-brainer in my opinion. Look at your real estate. If you own a building or if you lease, look at your lease if you lease. Look at the possibility of subleasing some space. I've seen that happen in office buildings in the area here in the greater Houston area. There's lots and lots of subleasing going on in office buildings particularly. But the point is, take a moment, evaluate your situation, make sure that you've squeezed down your cost of occupancy, as I call them, which includes utilities, taxes, et cetera, but make sure that your location is, the cost of it is as tight as it can be going into the slowdown. Labor cost, I really tell people be careful. We all know, particularly in the market here in Montgomery County, how hard it is to find good people. It's flat hard to find people. I read the other day, I believe it was South Dakota, their unemployment's below 2%. I can't imagine being successful in that market and wanting to add people or replace people. It's got to be almost impossible to find people, particularly good people, that you would want to hire under any circumstances. So be sure you have your labor, be sure you have your staff, all of that lined up. Make sure you're doing all the right things, of course, to keep these people and to maintain that workforce. Line of credit or some access to funds. If in fact a recession does happen, if in fact it lasts long enough, typically many businesses are going to be faced with cash flow needs beyond their capability of generating cash flow. So it's important that you have access to the extra funds that you may need, whether it be a line of credit that's there now, prepared in advance, where you're not hurrying, you run in the bank last minute, you can't make it happen. Do it now. And finally, keep marketing. Don't quit marketing your business. People rush immediately when the first signs of a slowdown and they stop advertising or they cut it way back. You market during difficult times, slowdowns, recessions, you'll get business because you'll get business from your competitors. So when things do turn around, and they always turn around, you're going to be way ahead of the game. So be careful. Don't cut yourself short when it comes to marketing, et cetera, advertising of your business. Well, I appreciate you taking time today to be with us. Again, I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Michel Prive. I encourage you to reach out to Michel. You can contact me here at the station at onebestconsult@gmail.com, and I'll be glad to pass your message on to Michel. And until next week, I encourage you, as I try to do every week, pay attention to what's important in your business. Have a great week. See you next week, 11 o'clock Monday morning, right here on the Weekly Business Hour.